Sissy, we got to go get everything charged up. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Once again, we're discussing grid down solutions, but this time around, we're looking at a more economical, portable solution. You've heard us say many times, we're a first world country with a third world power grid.
Yeah, grid down outages are happening more frequently and they're actually lasting longer. If you don't have some source of power backup solution, not only is it going to be inconvenient for you, but you may even lose food that's stored in your fridge or your freezer.
Y'all have heard us say many times before that we're a first world country with a third world power grid.
Ain't that the truth? You know, these grid down outages are happening more frequently and they're even lasting longer at times. And if you don't have some source of power backup, a solution as we like to call it, not only is it going to be inconvenient for you or me or you guys, but you're going to lose vital resources, even food that you've got stored in your fridge or your freezer, right?
Well, and that's especially relevant right now because we're into the thick of hurricane season here in the southeast.
So it's a very pertinent topic. All right, Chris, what do we got here?
So this is the Jackery Explorer 1000. Has a 1,000-watt inverter, so 1,000 watts of continuous AC output power, and has 1,002 watt hours of battery capacity.
So explain to me what the surge power is. If it's 1,000 watt, what can you get out of surge, and what does that mean?
So as a general rule of thumb, whatever the continuous output power is, you can double it for a short period of time. So if it's a 1,000-watt inverter like this, you could push it as far as 2,000 watts, but you might get 10 seconds, you might get 45 seconds. With this particular one, which we've tested, when we take it beyond its 1,000 watts, it'll typically keep running for about 45 seconds before it trips and shuts down.
Cool. I'm reading some of the stats on this. Very interesting. How about the battery and charging, and how many like full cycles can you get out of it?
So this is a lithium-ion NMC battery, which is one of the reasons that they've kept the cost down.
Okay.
Not quite as expensive as the LifePo 4s. It will maintain 80% of its capacity up to 500 plus charges. You charge it with an AC power brick, which is this guy right here.
Yep, looks like your standard AC power brick.
Yeah, exactly. They say that it takes 7.5 hours to charge from completely empty with this. In our test, it was closer to 5 hours, to be honest with you.
So faster?
Yeah, I think they're just trying to set expectations. So when they say 7.5 hours and the person charges it in 5 hours, they're like, that's a win.
That's pretty good marketing tool there.
Yeah, expectation management, right?
Yeah. How about charging off the car off of the car plug, DC plug?
So it comes with a car adapter as well, 12-volt car port here. They say somewhere around, say, 12, 14 hours. You know, it's a lot less current than it's coming from your,
but it seems
your wall
reasonable
receptacle.
For
yeah, and I'll be honest, we haven't tested the car charge for a very specific reason, because I know what you're fixing to ask next.
Yeah, exactly. So solar.
Yeah, so we've got 2 solar panels here. They're 80 watts each, 160 watts total. And so the projected time to recharge this is somewhere in the range of about 12 hours. It might be because our sun is so strong here in Florida.
Don't you know it?
Yeah, absolutely. But even with 280-watt solar panels, not set up in an optimal position, like the optimal declination to the sun and whatnot, it actually charges significantly faster than that. So even with, we've got the solar panels in the shade right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're going to show those here in just a second.
Yeah, in less than 15 minutes, it picked up 6% battery charge. So if you extrapolate that out, you come way under what their specs are. But again, I think from an expectation standpoint, they're trying to, let people know maybe that are in a northern climate, Pacific Northwest, where it's only sunny about 49% of the time.
Yep.
That, I mean, you can charge when the sun's, not full strength, but it's a much slower process, of course.
So, right. So you guys live up north, might take you a little bit longer. Let's talk about dollar signs. How efficient is this price per watt hour? Have you figured that out?
Yeah, so it's just under 90 cents per watt hour, for your battery capacity. With that being said, Jackery's products are really popular, okay? So they have a bundle right now that's the Explorer 1000 with 200-watt solar panels. But when they sent this to us, the warehouse was out 100-watt panels. So they sent us 80-watt panels.
Okay.
6 to 1, half a dozen to another as far as performance is concerned. Not output, but, overall performance. So you can get the Explorer 1000 with 200-watt panels off of Amazon for $999.
Cool.
So
Okay.
really good deal. So yeah, we're going to show the 80-watt panels, but again, the construction's the same.
So for folks that are saying $1,000, man, that sounds like a lot of money for a battery for a portable power unit and solar panels, but it's really not, is it?
Well, it's not simply based on the fact that this has a 1,000-watt inverter in it. Most of the stuff that's under $1,000 is under 1,000 watts of continuous AC output power.
Okay.
So where that would come into play, I mean, you mentioned food previously.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, your average refrigerator could be like 300, 600, 700 watts in that sort of range.
Okay.
The Jackery is capable of running that. And so if you run it for 45 minutes a day, which we've mentioned before, that's kind of the standard here in Florida. You have a power outage, you run your refrigerator for 45 minutes, and then it can keep your food fresh for at least another 24 hours. This guy is big enough that it can run the refrigerator and a few other items simultaneously at the same time. But the smaller ones that have a smaller inverter, if you've got a beast of a refrigerator that's 700 watts, you may end up tripping it. It may just be overpowered for that size of device. So this guy here is at the $999 price point with 2 solar panels. Pretty good bang for the buck if you want to at least be able to run your refrigerator and a handful of other things.
Well, that's good to know. And speaking of beast, it's not nearly as heavy as some of the units you and I have reviewed in the past. What's this weigh? About 20 something?
22 pounds.
25?
Yeah, good guess.
Yeah.
But
just right for my curls.
Yeah, a little bit lighter than, you know, we've reviewed a lot of larger power stations.
Yes, sir.
That have a lot larger battery capacity, and obviously they have their advantages. The disadvantage would be additional cost, additional weight, and less portability. So this is kind of the sweet spot right here for something that can, again, run your refrigerator, but at the same time you can pick this up, throw it in your truck, and go use it for overlanding, camping, whatever the case may be.
It is truly portable, yeah, having actually felt it myself. Well, let's take a little closer look at the input and output jacks. All right, Chris, so what's this thing have for features and ports?
So on the side of the unit, there's an LED light, and I really like the fact that they put it on the side because many times when they put it on the front where everything else is, if you have the light on, you're blinded. You can't see what you're doing. You can't read the display. So having this on the side, smart move on Jackery's part.
All right. How about the front side here?
Well, so for output stuff, we've got a 12-volt car port. We've got 2 USB-C ports and 2 USB-A ports. Fast charge right here, quick charge. We can turn this bank on and off with this button here. We've got 3 AC ports or receptacles that we can also turn on and off with one button. We've got our display. When you press the display button, it lights up the backlight. And then we have our input here. So this barrel port here is for charging by AC or from 12 volts in your car. And this Anderson port here is for charging by solar panels. I like how Jackery labels everything, by the way. For somebody like Survival Dispatch, when we're looking at dozens of power stations, sometimes it's a bit of a pain in the butt to try and keep track of what cables and what accessories belong to which power station. So I like the fact that it came with this pouch. As we showed earlier, there's a charging cable for 12 volts from your car. It's labeled Jackery, so that's nice. There is the power brick and the cable that goes with it, and it's labeled Jackery as well, so there's no question as to which unit it belongs to. There's an instruction manual and a warranty card that all comes in the box, and that's it, other than the power station, of course.
So Chris, what is the Jackery 1000 actually capable of powering?
Well, from a simple perspective, with small devices, you can charge the average smartphone 100 times. If you go to the other end of the scale and you take something like a blow dryer, this one in particular draws somewhere around 1,800 watts on its full settings. If we were to run this at its full setting, it would trip this, and we've done it. You know, it lasts about 45 seconds and it shuts down. So I've got this set on the medium setting for heat because that's what draws the power. And if we turn this sucker on, it'll run all day long in this middle position.
So I'm noticing some numbers changing on the output here as it's running.
So in previous tests, I'm assuming it was drawing somewhere around 700 watts, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it still had 300 watts of output power. So if you're trying to size one of these to whatever appliances or devices that you want to use just to add up the wattage on the sticker. So, this one here, this blow dryer that's 1800 watts and change, obviously we can't run it on full power or it'll trip the unit, but we were just able to show that it could run on 50% power, no problem. If your refrigerator, again, is 500, 600, 700 watts, you can run that off of the Jackery. Your lights around your house, so if you had a light that's 100 watts, well, you can easily, not only you can run that off of this, but because it's 1,000 watt hours of battery capacity, you can run the 100 watt light bulb for 10 hours. 10 times 100 watts equals 1,000 watt hours. It's pretty easy to do the math to figure out what you can run or to figure out what you're going to utilize and therefore what you need to buy as far as a power station is concerned.
All right, so Chris, give me your thoughts on the Jackery solar panels.
Well, first and foremost, these panels are super light and super thin. So we've got a ton of solar panels from other manufacturers that are supposed to be portable that are honestly 5 times as thick as this, and maybe not 5 times as heavy, but pretty darn heavy. So we've got one of them right now on the kickstand in the sun. And actually that's a good point as well that I want to show. This kickstand is made out of metal bar. It's extremely solid. We've tested a bunch of portable solar panels that have these really flimsy kickstands on the back, and man, if a mouse walks by, it's
I
enough
can
to tip
attest
them
to that.
over.
Some have been pretty wimpy.
Yeah, they're not great for outdoor use, whereas these ones really are. And even though we're in the shade right now, this panel is generating some electricity. So for argument's sake, if the output's reading, say 70,
I'm zooming in at 62 right now, 61.
Okay. So if I turn this one around, you probably just lost a couple watts.
Yep, lost a couple.
Yeah, so
59, yep.
It's just an example that these panels will pick up some sunlight in the shade. It's not a ton, but they will function. But if we take this and move it over into the sun with the other one, we should theoretically see twice as much wattage.
And let's see what we've got. We had 61, now we got 121. Yep, we doubled it.
So considering these are 80 watt panels, to get 60 watts without doing a whole lot of finagling as far as where we've got them sat, what the angle is to the sun, let's show this, Denny. Watch this. If I move the kickstand up like this, what just happened to our power?
Well, we reduced it. We're down to 98, 99 from 120-ish.
Yep. So
just by changing the angle.
The point being is that the angle to the sun is critical for all solar panels as far as what their efficiency is going to be. So the fact that we're getting 120, basically 60 watts per panel on average, that's 75% of what the panel is rated for. And again, we didn't take the time to, figure out the exact angle to the sun and have them, set up in that manner. Pretty darn good performance, Denny.
All right, Chris, well, let's sum it up. What's the highlights here of this unit?
Well, I mean, we made a note of a number of different highlights while we were testing this unit. We've had it for a couple months. We've used it in real world applications. So we got them all written down, and, we're both in our mid 50s. We don't have Alzheimer's, but we do have some timers.
That's right.
Sometimes we remember, sometimes we forget. So first and foremost, at 89.7 cents per watt hour, pretty reasonable, especially from a brand name. Anytime something's under $1 per watt hour, it's a pretty decent price.
And you consider Jackery a brand name?
Yeah, Jackery would be one of the better brands for sure. Without naming names, there's half a dozen that are top tier brand names, and then there's a whole pile that come after that of varying levels of quality. Like most products, once you get away from the high end, the best products, all of those second tier products, many times they're made by the same manufacturer and they're just white labeled.
No kidding.
They don't actually own the R&D. Like Jackery owns the IP and the R&D behind their products. Okay. And they manufacture them themselves. Right. So this unit has pure sine wave output for the AC power. So what that means is very clean power. If you don't have pure sine wave and you start plugging in any device that has a motherboard, a logic board, any type of circuitry in it.
It's one thing I've learned from you about these power units.
It'll kill it. So, like if you live in a large urban area and there's a huge draw on the power grid, and if you've ever seen a brownout where everybody's lights start to dim and whatnot, That's very dirty power, and it's very hard on things like computers, electronics, even a refrigerator that has a motherboard in it, sort of thing. So pure sine wave, that's a big deal. It means it's very clean power, and it's not going to, wreck your devices.
Mm-hmm.
The fan in this thing is deadly quiet. The only time I've ever heard this fan come on is when you turn the unit on and it goes through a power cycle.
Interesting. That's, people forget. I think sometimes it requires a cooling unit. Yep. Because there's circuitry that can get hot in here. So these units have an internal fan, and they can be loud.
Yeah. So what's interesting though is, I mean, the heat index today, it's well over 100, 105, 106 out here, and we've been running this thing, for half a day now.
Yeah.
And the fan has not kicked on other than when we started it, and it does that power cycle. So the cooling fins, which you can see through the sides of this case, are very efficient at cooling the unit.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact the fan doesn't turn on may sound like a small deal, but it's actually a really big deal when you're sitting beside it inside your house. Like some of the power stations that we've tested, sounds like a jet plane fixing to take off. Yeah, and it's nice to have power, but you can't even hear yourself think. So yep. Quiet fan that rarely comes on. The case is plastic, but it's extremely solid.
Right.
And the way they've constructed the case with all these beveled edges all the way around, it's stronger than square corners.
Oh,
okay, because it's a uniform continuous piece.
Okay.
It's not, pieces that have been welded together, plastic welded together, screwed together, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. So solid case, 2-year warranty from a tier 1 vendor.
Okay.
So that's pretty important. And as I mentioned earlier, all of the accessories for Jackery stuff are labeled Jackery. Right. So for someone like me that's going through power station after power station,
and you've got a lot of gear in there. I know. I can attest to that.
Yeah, it's sometimes it gets hard to keep track of all that stuff. So I give them kudos for that.
Awesome. So a really neat unit, solar panels. What could we do to improve it?
So I stewed over this and racked my brain trying to think, how could we really improve this product? And the only thing that comes to mind is giving it connectivity to the smartphone app. So
Bluetooth.
Yeah, well, Jackery have an app, iOS and Android, but there's no Bluetooth or Wi-Fi modem or connectivity in this unit. So It doesn't connect to the smartphone app. Not really that big a deal for a portable unit like this. It doesn't take much effort to look at the screen, but sometimes it is handy to have it on, an app so that you can turn ports on and off, and you can read what the statistics are, like how many watts is it getting from the solar panels, without having to get up and physically go over and look at the power station. But basically that's all I could come up with, Denny. And we're not an affiliate with Jackery either. So, we're going to put some links down below, but if we put Amazon links down below, we get 1/4%.
Itty bitty. So hey, it's a list. If you want to help support the channel, use our Amazon links for sure.
Yeah. So I think that what that works out to is that if you paid $999 for the 2 panels and the power station, Survival Dispatch makes $2.50.
So the Jackery Explorer 1000 unit. We've showed you about all we can. What would you add anything to that?
We'll put all the speeds and feeds down below in the comment section. And if you have a Jackery power station, we'd like to hear your feedback as well.
Yes.
As far as what your experience has been, and share that not just with us, but our other followers down below. So they're getting kind of, another third party's opinion of the products. And that's all we got, Denny.
Cool. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you hit all those important buttons: like, subscribe, comment, share, the notification bell so you know when we drop new videos. And thanks for watching.